All set.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Kate Barrand. I'm a program manager at the Department of Small and Local Business Development. So excited to have you join us for our third session in our DC Grants for Businesses Generally series that we're having in July 2021. We have some great speakers today who are here to share more information about specific grant programs of interest. I'm going to do some brief introduction and then we're going to get right to those guest speakers. So this is, as I said, the third of a four-part series. Next week, we're also going to have Making Grants Work for You. We had a couple of sessions that were here earlier this month. We did where to find grants and how to prepare for grants. So some of the great people you're going to hear from today, we have Stephanie Thomas from the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development's office, and she coordinates the Great Streets program and a lot of other great stuff. We have the Commission on Arts and Humanities, and we have Devon Liness also here. Once again, my name is Kate. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our team at DSLBD. We can help connect you with other folks in government or help get answers to questions if those don't get answered today. You can always email us at inno.ed@dc.gov, and we'll look to track down an answer for your question. So today's agenda, I'm going to do a very, very super brief recap of the last two sessions, and then we're going to have our wonderful guest speakers. I'll close us out with a little bit of discussion on one of our big grant programs. Those are the Dream Grants for Ward 7 and 8. And we're going to tell you just a little bit about alternative financing options. Grants are always wonderful when you can achieve them, but there are always more people applying for grants than there is grant money. And so DSLBD has some other options as well if you were looking for financing for your business. And we want to let you know a little bit about that too. So for the recap for the sessions, we're sharing right here the fact that these are recorded and you can get access to them. Anyone who has signed up for any of the 4 sessions will receive all recordings and all materials at the end, but these are the links if you want to get them now for those first 2 sessions. And you can also email us if you didn't see that information come through. We'll make sure that you can get that. Where to find grants. We took people through some of the agency websites so you could see where those grants are notified. We also talked about the coronavirus.dc.gov website, which has had a lot of grant resources on it, as well as the Mayor's Office of Community Affairs grants portal. And for how to prepare grants last week, we went through a lot of the eligibility paperwork that is typical across most grant programs. Every grant program is individual, but within district government, there are a lot of things that are standard. And so we talked about those and how you can start getting prepared on those pieces. I was going to say one really quick piece about grants, and then all of the speakers today run grant programs, and we talk to people about grant programs all the time. We do want to share that grants are hard because they are competitive. They do require a lot of work, and within that, if you do get the grant, they also require reporting afterwards. So one thing we always want to share to businesses as you are thinking about grants, time that you spend on grants is time that you are taking away from revenue generating activities. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It's just something you should always keep in mind. What is the reward that's probably going to come from the grant versus other things that you might be doing? And within that, I'll just share a little bit of what we shared in the first session, talking about the level of competition that is in grants. So these are just 2 grant programs that DSLBD has run in the last year. We ran a robust retail grant for retail businesses. And just so that you have a sense, we only had funding to support 14% of the applicants who applied. We did try to make that a very easy application process, but it wasn't even a quarter of people that we had funding to support. And similarly, when you look at the Dream Grants, which we'll talk about later today, in our last round, about 200 people started Dream Grant applications. Well, only about 130 submitted. Last year, only 20 were awarded. So I just want to give you a sense of that competition level, and that means a few things. It doesn't mean you shouldn't try for grants, but if you're trying for grants and you're going to do the work and you're going to put the effort in, make sure you're asking all of the questions, make sure you have all your paperwork, make sure that you've spent the full amount of time so that you have a good and competitive application if you are going to go through this process. And that's one of the reasons that all our team and the grant managers spend a lot of work trying to make sure that people know everything they need to know so that they can apply and be successful and competitive. But with all of that, I really want to turn things over quickly because we have these great speakers. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to introduce Stephanie Thomas. Let's see if it lets me stop sharing my screen. I'll get there in a quick second. And Stephanie is from the Great Streets program. They have a wonderful website. Stephanie, I apologize. I'm having some issues with my WebEx.
No, it's perfectly fine. That is technology.
All right. There we are. My screen is down, so you can feel free to share your screen.
Absolutely. And let's see, I hope that we are sharing. Wonderful. And if I can get this into presentation mode, that would be awesome. So let's see. If I have it for presentation mode, there we go. Okay. Well, good afternoon, and thank you for being here for today's session. My name is Stephanie Thomas, and I serve as the Director for Great Streets and Retail here in the Office of the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development. As you can see on the site here, you can reach me by Great Streets by email at greatstreets@dc.gov. And this presentation deck will be made available to you as Kate indicated a moment ago. The objectives for today's discussion is around the grant process, really talking a little bit more about Great Street, talking a little bit about grant readiness, and some resources that are available for you. Some of this may be a gentle reminder or reiterate some of the items that have been has been shared in previous trainings. I'll try not to do too much on that. But for those who may be joining for the first time, it'll give you an opportunity to understand how Great Streets and many of our DC grants are. So I want to start with a guiding quote. And it's, if you quit on the process, you're quitting on the results. And I came across this quote by this gentleman who's Adua Khan. I hope I am saying his name correctly. From his book, Wealth for All, Living a Life of Success at the Edge of Your Ability. But I do believe that it's important, quote, in framing that grants and the application for making an application for a grant is a process. And it takes a fair amount of commitment and investment, but it is also has a fair amount of reward if you're able to attain one of the awards for the grants. So let's talk a little bit about the grant process. And I titled this a NOFA, an RFA, sometimes an application guide, and an FAQ. And what does that mean? So City District of Columbia grants are generally guided by the citywide grants manual and source book, which means that there are requirements that the agencies and entities are, whether it's at the Deputy Mayor's office or agencies, assistant agencies throughout the district, that govern how we are able to offer these grant opportunities and the nature of how it may be competitive. The first element is really around a notice of funding availability, or NOFA. And the NOFA actually provides a brief description of the purpose of which funds are available, or sort of the first signal that the funding opportunity and a request for application will be coming forward. It sets the criteria for eligible applicants and the time and location for which the request for application may be obtained and submitted. And generally, you'll find a notice of funding availability as well as the request for applications to be posted, at least on DMPED side, at the Office of Partnerships and Grants, which is opgs.dc.gov. Of course, on the Office of the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development's website, which is dmped.dc.gov. And of course, for those programs that are funded through Great Streets, greatstreets.dc.gov. And we'll also make sure that we share these with you as well. After the notice of funding availability has been posted for the required time, a request for application, or an RFA, is put forward. And in part, the RFA provides a description of the purpose of the program, and it defines the type and range of services or activities that a grantee or subgrantee will be sought to carry out under the grant or subgrantee award. The RFA also requires that we propose measurable goals, that there are objective and timeframes, that we describe who the target recipients are, and provide a plan for formal evaluation. It also requires us to specify the time period for which all the services will be funded, any special requirements or services that will be emanating from authorizing statute, as well as our federal grant agreement or regulation. Also, where applicable, we outline the scoring of these applications, right? And it's not, there's several different elements to it, but some of it may be to the justification of the need of the grant funds, the soundness of your proposal, the adequacy and reasonableness of your resources, the proposed resources, and the demonstrated ability for managing what you're proposing in your project and do this kind of thing. Of course, there's a deadline that we have to put forward, as well as specific provisions that are prescribed by the district. So I wanted to make sure that I share that, because when you often see these grant opportunities come forward, and not to lead into the exclusion of the Great Streets, they are governed very much by this the grants manual and what we're required to do to disseminate these funds, whether they're local or federal, but local dollars or federal dollars that are there. Also, sometimes you'll see grants come forward and there's a grantee or fund manager that has been selected. That has happened under the Great Streets program. And that entity will execute its service and responsibilities under their grant agreement with us. But they also have to adhere to the terms and conditions that are set forth by the district for the program funding and ultimately for the sub-grantee awards. One of the things that I often find is the information is oftentimes a lot, right? So you can find an application guide or you can find an FAQ. But there's some reminders here that I think are important for you to consider how to approach applying for one of the district grants. But definitely, I think, be extrapolated to federal funding and grants that's available. And ultimately for the Great Streets Group, right? The grant process is competitive. We have to adhere to the application guidelines. That's what we have put forth in the RFA. So no entity is guaranteed an award and or grant funding. You can't sort of call someone or to inquire along the side about the grant itself, because there are parameters that as grant administrators that are required. It is also important that you read the information that's contained within the NOFA, the RFA, the application guide, and the FAQs as they are, if they are available. And generally they are available for the grants. Eligibility for the grant program's objectives are really clearly delineated there, as well as the acceptable format and required documents for the application submission. And I'm stressing that because if the grant, particularly for Great Streets as well, and some of the other Great Street funded grants, they have to come in a certain format and they have to have certain documents that are a part of it. If not, then it's deemed incomplete and it cannot move forward in a competitive process. And of course, the other element that I always stress for people, particularly with Great Streets, is to look at what the application review and scoring is. It is outlined in the RFA. It's outlined pretty clearly on what are the points or the percentages that are associated with the grant proposal or the grant application, and how we will look at scoring it. A lot of times, I have seen in the grants that I have reviewed, and there's been hundreds of them at this point, that you can tell when an applicant has not read the RFA and has not been thoughtful about their response. So I just want to continue to suggest that as well. And then here at DMPED and with Great Streets, we often have information sessions to make sure that you understand what we're looking for in the solicitation. So let's talk a little bit about Great Streets. Great Streets, you see here's a part of the quote, which is our goal is, I apologize, we're in the office today, so if you're hearing some background, with the goal of creating livable, walkable, shoppable communities serving retail experiences across all 8 wards. And I want to talk a little bit about the Great Streets programs to give you context and to help you understand what we're looking for in the grant itself. So a couple of things. Great Streets is the district's largest commercial revitalization initiative led by DMPED. Since 2006, Great Streets has grown actually into a multi-year program that has supported hundreds of small businesses and continues to invest in 13 retail priority areas, affectionately known as Great Street Corridors. And our program's purpose is to support existing small businesses, attract new businesses, to increase the district's tax base, to create new jobs for the district residents, and to transform emerging commercial corridors into thriving and inviting neighborhood centers. And we do this in two ways. One is our small business capital improvement grants, such as Great Streets Retail, small business retail grant, and some of our catalytic investments, like Neighborhood Prosperity Fund, which is funded under the Great Streets Loan. For those entities that are applying for the Great Streets Retail or grants, and that is the small business retail grants, or could be the legacy grant, it could be the locally made manufacturing grant. You have to be within what are called retail priority areas, or affectionately, again, our Great Street corridors. And we have 13 of them across all 8 wards, and they are listed here. So you see Connecticut Avenue, Georgia Avenue, 8th Street, Bladensburg, Martin Luther King South Capitol, Minnesota Avenue, Benning Road, and Nanny Helen Burroughs, New York Avenue, Northeast, which was expanded up to Montello Avenue in the last fiscal, actually in this fiscal year, North Capitol Street, which is Northwest and Northeast, Pennsylvania Avenue Southeast, Rhode Island Avenue Northeast, Wisconsin Avenue Northwest, 7th Street Northwest, and 14th and U Street, which actually includes Adams Morgan, Mount Pleasant, and Columbia Heights in its boundaries. Historically, for-profit entities, which are including but not limited to partnerships, limited liability companies, corporations, and arts and humanity-based 501c3 nonprofits that are duly organized in the District of Columbia, have been eligible. We generally are looking for retail and service-oriented businesses who are located or situated in a Great Street corridor or its boundaries. The grant itself can be used in 2 ways, for hard and soft costs. The hard costs that it can be utilized for is the build out of the new or vacant space, interior, exterior renovation. So think facade improvements or improvements that would comply with local or federal COVID-19 business guidance, right? So think HVAC in that way. Or purchase and installation of heavy equipment that is permanently attached to the wall, floor, or ceiling. A defined percentage of the grant can be applied to soft costs. So that's point of sale and inventory management, hardware, software, some marketing, and materials and services as appropriate and approved by the grantor, which is the district. Purchase and installation of movable equipment and furniture, and e-commerce systems that support your existing operations. So this is the B2B, B2C, retail, and wholesale activities. The actual amounts are defined in the RFA. They may change from solicitation to solicitation. So that is why I'm presenting this information on what we have done historically and what has generally been the focus of Great Street's small business retail. Generally, your application includes the following information, which is a cover page that has your contact information for the applicant, so your business name, your key contacts, your mailing address, your telephone number, your email, right? And the narrative. And the narrative is application introduction, your business experience response, project summary, corridor impact response, proof of capability response, business growth and expansion response, your job creation response, certified business enterprise commitment response, right? So if you're doing any work on in your proposed project will have work that you are solicited in the grant. We want to know, and we strongly encourage that you're committed to securing a CBE to help in either the construction or the acquisition of equipment, or providing some service that will be supported underneath your approved grant. The financial viability statement, because we will ask for your financial statements. We cannot give grants to businesses that are at high risk for either closure or show that they may not have the ability to to move forward with the grant. And then, of course, there's several appendices and attachments that change from it may change and sometimes shorten from period to period. So this quote by James Baker, who's a former Secretary of State, I think highlights what's the next important steps here, which is proper preparation prevents poor performance. Now, success is not guaranteed, but it does improve one's chances. For great streets, in order to become great streets ready, you, one, have to have a business that's located within and along the border of the great streets corridor. You have to be in good standing with DC's Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs, DCRA, the Office of Tax and Revenue, the DC Department of Employment Services, and the Federal Internal Revenue Service. So DCRA, OTR, DOES, IRS. These are acronyms that are very familiar to us in the business community, but they can absolutely stop you from being able to apply for a grant, and or if you are awarded for a grant, not being able to receive your award. You do need to have an active basic business license. This is part of just sort of general operations for your business, but will be required for the grant. You do need to have your financial records readily available in annual, quarterly format, and they must be GAAP conforming. So this is the opportunity to have a conversation with your accountant or your bookkeeper, or if you're doing it yourself through the software, to just make sure that generally software is supposed to make sure you're GAAP conforming. But if you are working with an outside entity, that you have these elements tied up really well, because they are part of the evaluation process. You have to have evidence of site control, which means you need to have a lease that generally has at least 2 years remaining on it, or you have a mortgage or deed showing ownership of that space. You do need to possess proof of property and liability insurance. There are requirements for insurance here to operation of a small business here in the District of Columbia. You do require that you own this. Now, some things that are a little bit may seem intuitive, but often sometimes are not, which is you have to think strategically about your proposed project and how the grant funding is going to support that. That is huge, and you can see in the prior slide what we're looking for, a very thoughtful, strategically strategy-based grant application. You have to understand the scope of your project, which includes your timeline, your costs, the project management, and the potential impact to the business, the corridor, because this is great streets, and the community. You also should understand how to create a project budget and financial projections. Those elements are very helpful in the review of the application. It is required for the project budget, but your financial projections are often help us understand how you're able to leverage these dollars in a meaningful way for the business and ultimately for the community. And finally, seek assistance early. Sometimes it's not that the grants are necessarily overly complicated, and sometimes that might be the case, but they are involved. And if you are not necessarily tech savvy, may not be as financially savvy around with the numbers and knowing the number story, or you have some other concerns or challenges, there are lots of resources that are available to support you in this process. And with that, I'll close by talking a little bit about the resources. Great Streets has provided a list of resources that can assist you. There's everything from, if you're new, doing the DC Doing Business Guide, to DC Small Business Help, to the neighborhood guides, to the retail site and search if you are expanding into a new corridor from to your first or original business might be, or second location might be. There's tons of resource centers that are available to you. Certainly, DSLBD is a great resource, especially since a lot of the documents that you need, they can help you understand how to navigate the path to get that together. And of course, the financing, which is here, it's not part of the grant, but it's just to give you some additional support. And you'll see there's a link that is live in the document that you will be receiving about the various community-based organizations that can also help. These are the SBTA, Small Business Technical Assistance Providers, who can help you to pair your application. And it doesn't mean they're going to do the application for you. What they can do is help you to understand elements of it, help you to pull documents together, and help you to submit it if you need. So if you have any questions, again, my name is Stephanie Thomas, and you can reach me at Great Streets, GREATSTREETS at dc.gov, or at Inno, you can reach Kate at Inno.ED at dc.gov. I hope I did that correct, Kate, and she can reach out to us for any questions that you may have. And with that, I will stop sharing.
Stephanie, thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. And you know, some folks might have seen me put in the chat, the Great Streets program is, if it is not the largest, and I think it is the largest grant program for DC-based for-profit businesses. It is a wonderful opportunity here in the district. We've heard other cities and states look at this program in awe. And so if you are in a Great Streets corridor, we definitely suggest that you go to the website, start looking at what it means to be Great Street ready. And as Stephanie said, be really thoughtful if you're planning on applying. So I want to say thank you for spending some time with us today. And I know we have another wonderful presentation from Devon. And so I would love to invite Devon to share his screen. And we're going to hear from the Commission on Arts and Humanities.
Unmute myself before I forget to do that. Give me 1 second. And so, first off, good afternoon, beautiful people. I appreciate everybody for having me. I appreciate you all for putting this together. My name is Devon Lacine. I am from the DC Commission on Arts and Humanities. And today I'm just going to go over some grants, some cyclical grants that we typically have. And so when they do come out in their cycles, I hope that everybody will be prepared to, go for the grants. And I want to thank our previous presenter and Catherine for sharing some very helpful general information that we always give out here at CAH in terms of submitting grants and the process in itself. So first off, this is our team: Kamanzi, Curry, Kevin, Khalid, Robert, Travis. David is our deputy director. Then we have Allery. Then we have Andrew, Ashley, Jean, and Crystal. I put that in here because I want everybody to know that CAH has an open door policy in terms of actually being able to schedule a meeting with any of these people up here in terms of being able to access and ask any questions as it relates to grants. And that is one helpful way to help you navigate, as mentioned previously, to be able to submit a nice application and get that help and assistance that you may need. So the overview, these are the program types that fall under David Marquis. We have arts education, project-based grants, capacity building, our Arts and Humanities Fellowship Program. Our Arts and Humanities education projects is for non-profit organizations. This grant here is going to be up to $20,000. No match is required. And simply what that means is that you do not have to put any money up for the actual grant itself. As we move throughout the slides, you'll see that some of them actually do have matches, and it's typically for the organizations. And so the purpose for this grant is it supports exemplary programs in arts and or humanities education to students pre-K to 12 and to teachers, educational staff, and teaching artists of DCPS and DC public charter schools delivered by qualified nonprofits, humanities, arts education, and service organizations. So that's a pretty nice bunch and group of people who can actually be able to access this. And as you can see, her email is below. And so if you want any other further details and specifics as it relates to that grant, you can definitely feel free to reach out. And so our Arts and Humanities Fellowship program, this is for the individual residents. So this one is specifically for individuals and does not pertain to organizations. The amount for this one is going to be up to $10,000. This will also require no match. And so general support funding for artists and humanities practitioners who significantly contribute to the District of Columbia as a world-class based cultural capital. AHFP recognizes the impact of individual artists and humanities practitioners within the district and supports the vitality in those individuals to bring to the local community. So this grant is typically going to function the same way, but if you are not an organization, if you are a sole proprietor, or if you're just an individual artist who traffics in this lane, this is going to be a grant that pertains to you. And so Kamanzi as well as Curry are our grants managers for this specific grant in itself. And as you can see, humanities for Kamanzi, and then we have Curry who does design arts and visual arts. Then we have Kevin who does media arts, theater, and media is kind of broad. We tell our grantees who submit applications that you can be very creative in terms of how you submit those. We have Robert who is over music, and then we've also, which is new, which we just introduced, is our go-go musician. So if you know anybody who actually participates within the go-go music industry, we also do provide grants for that. And Allery Clark is our arts learning coordinator, and she deals with teaching artists. And so this one is going to be field trips. If you know anybody who is trying to set up a field trip with youth or any other group or cohorts of people, this is going to be the actual grant for them to participate in. The amount is up to $50,000 and it does not require any match. The purpose again is it supports the cost of arts and cultural field trip tickets, associated transportation costs, professional development opportunities for classroom educators, and or post field trip workshops for students. So funding may be also allocated to necessary personnel if you have maybe somebody helping manage the cohorts, the students, or whatever age group that you're actually dealing with in terms of supporting for the plan and the implementation of the program. Let me move forward. And so east of the river, this grant is going to be specific to east of the river. So you must have a Ward 708 address to be able to apply for this. This is going to be a grant for organizations. The amount is up to $35,000. There is no match required for this grant. Khalid Randolph, you see his information below. He is our grants manager who sits over this grant. If you have any specific questions or would like any further details, you can reach out to him and he'll be able to explain to you the specifics. And so this grant, the purpose for that is it supports the arts and humanities organizations that have a principal business, of course, like I said, in Ward 7 and Ward 8. And then activities may be projects that include, but are not limited to, dance, design, folk and traditional arts, literature, media arts, music, theater, and visual arts. So that's another grant that covers a lot of ground. And again, what we tell people is when you are submitting these applications, just be very strategic, just be very intentional, and very thought out when you are actually submitting the application, because literature, music, theater, all of those things can cover a lot of ground, and it's all about how you structure your application in terms of how people are going to be scoring that through the paneling process. So projects, events, and festivals, we have Travis, Marcus, and then we have Robert Nunez, who sits over the projects, events, and festivals grants portfolio. And this application, this grant itself is going to be for individuals as well as organizations, up to $7,500 for individuals, which requires no match. And then for organizations, you can get a little bit more, which at $15,000. But it also doesn't require a match for this particular grant. The purpose is this is grant to support humanities projects supported by projects, events, and festivals. Grant may include, but are not limited to, concerts, visual arts exhibitions, literary readings, or festivals that feature dance, folk art, film, music, theater, and other art forms. And so literary readings can be anything from I've seen book launches here, and then we have the visual arts exhibitions. If you all know where 200 I Street is, we had prior to COVID an exhibition that lived out when you enter the building. But if you have say a space, this is for our curators who have a series and different works of art that they would want to attach together. And then, of course, the traditional, festivals, put your mind in the sense of Broccoli Civic Festival and those type of different things when it comes to this grant here. And so facilities and buildings, which you'll hear the grants managers commonly referred to as FAB. This one is going to be for organizations. And so the amount is up to 500,000. This is a pretty hefty grant, and it's for new facility purchases, and up to 250,000 for other eligible projects. So you can only get that 500,000 amount when you are going after and seeking to purchase a new facility along with that project that is attached to it. And so this one in particular has a actual match. Awards greater than 100,000 require one-to-one cash match. So what that means is if let's say you get $110,000, you're going to have to be able to match that one-to-one at $110,000 out of your own budget. And so awards 100,000 and less though do not require a match. So anything under 100,000, if you just want to go 99,000, $99.99, that would not require a match. That's typically not a number that you would get in a grant though. And the purpose of this though is it supports qualified organizations seeking permanent property or equipment or pursuing other capital projects. Grant funds may be used for planning, short-term and long-term facilities projects, or the purchase of a new facility. And Kevin Hassett, you can see his information down below. I do apologize for that. You can see his information below. I apologize for the lights flickering. We are back in the office as well. No, you good, boss. We good. So then what we have new for this time around is the eligible project expenses more widely permit technology. So technology industry, for my technology people, you are now able to cover those expenses in terms of digital infrastructure such as websites. I know they have not CADs, but they have Discords and other things that allow for the digital infrastructure. And so PPE also remains an eligible expense. If not a FY20 or 21 FAB grantee, you do need to attend a workshop to receive this grant. And so Liftoff, this is another grant that is going to be under Khalid's portfolio. This one is going to be for organizations. It does not have a geographical requirement this time around. The amount is going to be up to $25,000, and this does not require a match. This program is designed to build the infrastructural capacities of arts and humanities nonprofits with budgets under 250K. So as I heard the previous presenter mention, when it comes to budgets, finances, and timelines and things of that nature, this grant, you would definitely have to have all of those different things in place so that they can see the projections and different numbers associated so that you can actually be qualified for the grant itself. And so this program staff and consultants work closely with the leader from each participating organization to build on the existing organizational infrastructures and perspectives. So next, and what's new, this is now a 2-year program. Organization must have, again, budgets under 250,000 from the most recently completed fiscal year. And so public art, this is going to be a whole nother pocket within our office. Over the overview of programs and processes, Lauren Glover is our public arts manager. And so we have our art bank program. We have our arts exhibition, which is curatorial grants. And then we have public art building communities. And so our art bank program is led by Sarah Gordon. This is going to be for individuals and organizations as well. The amount that you can receive is up to $15,000. The purpose for this is for the acquisition of two and three dimensional artworks into the district's fine art collection. Again, we have our art bank down here at 200 I Street. And if you go around the city, all of the arts, sculptures or paintings that you see throughout the buildings are furnished by this art bank collection that we have here. And so you can also find her contact information and email below. And again, for all of my beautiful people who just came in, these will be being provided to you all after. So thank you. And then we have our arts exhibition curatorial grant. This one is going to be for only individuals and it's up to 30,000. It supports the development and public presentation of visual arts exhibitions with the company and programming by district resident curators through grant funding and use of CAH's exhibition space. So the exhibition space I was speaking to you all about in short a little bit earlier, that is where you can go ahead and put up your art. And actually it's a pretty good deal because you get the grant itself and you can also have art for sale up there. I bought maybe 2 or 3 paintings from the actual exhibition myself. And so it's a good way to showcase your work and have it in a space where we do all of the hanging and things of that nature. So you don't necessarily have to have a heavy cost associated with it. And this year we did an online one. So it didn't apply. Public art building communities. Alyssa Maru is going to be our public art coordinator. This one is going to be for individuals, organizations, and bids. So most of us are not bids within the room. So this, speaking to the individuals and organizations, this is going to be up to 75,000 for individuals. There's going to be no match associated with that, and it's going to be up to 125K for organizations. And the match is going to be dependent upon the total amount that you receive from the project. So that's going to vary very specifically and catered to you. Again, for the bids, our business improvement districts, that's going to be up to $150,000. And again, the match is going to be dependent among the total cost of the project itself. And so this grant supports individual artists and nonprofits organizations in their effort to design, fabricate, and install new temporary works of public art that connect artists and artsworks communities. So if you see, to put in the mind frame, those elephants and the big sculptures that you see around the city, those are going to be our public art building communities grants. And then for another example, this is the type of artwork that we get from this grant here. And then just a few tips for applicants. As mentioned earlier, again, please have all of your paperwork intact, Office of Tax Revenue, clean hands, things of that nature, just so that when you're submitting the grant, it can be as smooth and as easy as possible because it already is a tedious process. So we ask that people start working on those things. And again, you can also start reaching out to those grants managers right now currently as well. And so attending the workshops, getting one-on-one time with our grants managers, as well as other grantees who may be a benefit to help assist you because they've already whether received a grant or been through the process. And then whether it be your insurance, your W-9s, and just making sure that you have all of those things intact. And then what we call our cheat code is be a DC Arts panelist. This is you help our grants managers review grants applications themselves. And so basically you get to see how people score the grants and what people are looking for in terms of when you're submitting these applications, so you have a better understanding of when you're actually producing the application yourself, what your peers are looking for, because this does go through a paneling process. So this is the end of my slide, and then again you can go and apply online at dcarts.dc.gov. And this is going to be the end of me sharing my actual screen. But then I also want to let everybody know, though, that we have a color of the curb grant that is still out. The deadline is for that is going to be Friday, July 23rd, 2021. This is in partnership with the Department of Transportation. The office called for artists to color the curb, a curb extension art program. So you will be doing art associated with curbs in and around the city, designated by DDOT's right-of-way program. And up to 5 local artists and design professionals with prior surface painting experience will be selected to design and install ground murals at intersections in the District of Columbia. I will take and I will post this into the chat so everybody can have this and access to it. And again, the deadline is going to be Friday, July 23rd, and you can contact Lauren Wilson if you have any further questions, and I'll just go ahead and put that in the chat. But that concludes my presentation, and I want to say thank you for sticking around and hearing me out.
Devon, thank you so much to both Devon and to Stephanie. I'm going to walk through one more grant program pretty quickly. People may be familiar with the DSLBD Ward 7 and 8 micro business grants, the Dream Grants. So I'm working to share my screen right now. We have just a little bit of info on that. If you do have questions, please do drop those into the chat. And if any of us are able to answer that right now, we will. Otherwise, we'll make sure we try and get an answer out as we move. Are folks able to see my slides? Is it sharing yet? Doesn't look like it is. There it is. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to say just a brief couple of words about the Ward 7 and 8 Micro Business Dream Grants. These, for the last 4 years, have been grants of up to $10,000 for DC businesses that are resident-owned and operated in Ward 7 and 8. You also have to have fewer than 5 employees. If you are interested in this grant program, we do have a sign up right now so that you can receive notification. And we'll definitely make sure that we show this link again before we are done with today's session. But if you want to sign up to receive notice when those grants open, that would be the link. So I could have to say that at this point in time, the dates for the 2022 grants have not yet been announced. And as you heard from some of our other speakers, grant details can change year on year. So we're going to tell you some of the typical things that we see in the Dream Grants, but I want you to be prepared that some of this information can change when we actually post the grant for opening and we post that request for applications that Stephanie was talking about. So some of the typical requirements for the Dream Grants. Typically, the business itself has to be located in Ward 7 and 8. It has to be owned by residents of those wards. There have to be fewer than 5 employees. It is typically up to $10,000. And in order to be able to receive this grant, the business must be licensed. So you have to have a licensed business in the District of Columbia. So just a little bit of information about what the Dream Grants have looked like since 2018. So we have distributed over $750,000 to over 70 businesses. As you heard me talk up top, this is a highly competitive grant. It does require a lot of similar eligibility documentation to what Stephanie was mentioning for their grants, although ours is a little bit less. It's also less funding that will be coming through in the Dream Grants, but it is a competitive application process. So the eligibility, some of the main things that you'll want to think about that it typically includes, and it will include a few more things like this, but you'll have to have a licensed business. You'll have to provide proof that the resident of Ward 7 and 8 owns that business. So that can come through in different ways, but that's often articles of incorporation or some other form of ownership documentation. You have to have proof of residency, which is usually 2 different pieces. We don't just accept an identification. We also need something that is time stamped. So it's usually a utility bill or something similar. And this grant also requires general liability insurance. Sometimes that general liability insurance is required at the time of application. Sometimes we're able to do that at the time of award so that you don't have to spend money if you don't have that when you are applying. However, as you heard earlier, liability insurance is recommended for all businesses. So we do recommend that if you are a licensed and operating business in the district, that you consider having insurance. It protects you and it protects the business and it protects your customers. So applications that typically do well with the Dream Grants. Number one, you have to meet those eligibility pieces. So you have to be eligible for the grant. We're going to have a whole listing of things that you have to do, and you have to provide us with the actual documents. We have to see that for you to be eligible. You have to tell a clear story of the growth and stability of your business. How do you want to grow? What is your business doing? We need usually a simple explanation of the business model so that people can understand how your business operates or will be operating. And that business model has to be viable. And that means that, we'll have various experts who know a lot about business saying, do we think that this business can make money? Does it have proof of that? And if it doesn't have proof, does it have good projections to show that it will? And another piece that is a very big piece of the competitive application is a budget that you're going to propose for how you would use the funds. And it has to be aimed at growth. And it has to have costs that someone could look at your business model and say, this is likely to help this business grow if they spend the money in this way. So we do provide a number of different pieces of support for the Dream Grants. All grants across district government most likely have an information session. We also offer an additional separate paperwork boot camp to help people through those eligibility pieces. We typically offer a pre-deadline eligibility review. So there'll be a date before the deadline of the grant that if you've submitted by that time, we can do an eligibility check and check your paperwork. Typically, we are answering email questions throughout. We don't take calls during the application period because we want you to have everything in writing that you've heard from us, but we answer a lot of questions throughout the grant period. And then if you do not achieve the grant, if you apply for the grant and you don't get it, we'll do a feedback call with you and provide as much feedback as we can on that application so that if you want to apply in future years or apply for future grants, you have some information to help you with that. So I just wanted to go through some of that really quickly. Once again, here is that link. If you are interested in signing up, it's on our Eventbrite, so you can still find it in the same spot that you found this session. And, again, we don't know when this is going to open up. It probably won't be until the fall or early winter, but you can start signing up now to make sure that you receive notice. And I got one more really quick piece of information on DSLBD grants. This is a sneak preview for something that is coming very soon. We have sent a notice to the DC Register for a new market access grant that will be available for application actually this August. So the final details will be published in that request for applications. So we will want you to read that in full and look at all of that information. We expect that to be published on or before July 30th, 2021 on our website. But what we anticipate this grant will be is $5,000 grants for businesses that do not have a storefront. So if you are not a storefront business, so if you are a home-based business, if you are working out of markets, this would support you accessing in-person and online markets. So that's just a quick sneak peek. And now we're gonna, if you are interested in learning a little bit more about that grant, we don't have a sign-up page, but you can reach out either to our general email address or to madeindc@dc.gov, and you can definitely watch our website to hear a little bit more about that RFA when it's released on July 30th. So we're gonna end with just a quick note on something we've been ending for all of these sessions with. So grants are wonderful when you can get them, but we know that businesses need capital and financing for all sorts of different things. And so whether you're looking for something sooner, whether you aren't seeing a grant program that fits you, if you need additional capital because maybe the grant isn't enough, all sorts of different reasons you might be looking for financing. We work with the CDFIs across the entire district, so we can help you as you look for loans. But there are also other different ways that you can think about stacking capital. So you can look for loans, you can look for lines of credit, and we've just launched something called the DC Kiva Hub that we want to tell you just a little bit about. DC Kiva Hub is a loan. I'm going to skip this slide and tell you more about the Kiva Hub. So DC Kiva Hub is for a loan. It is for a loan of up to $15,000, depends on how much you need and how much can be underwritten. It is a loan with no fees and no interest. So it's some of the best loan terms that are possible. It is a crowd-funded loan. And so what you would be looking to do is asking the community to give $25 or more to help support your loan. Since we launched this in May, we have had 5 DC businesses who have been funded, and there are many more in the pipeline. And so we are excited about this option to continue to get more capital to DC businesses. If you are interested in this, please reach out to us. There are several different sessions and trainings that are happening. I'll go back to that slide that was there a moment ago. On our Eventbrite, you'll see a number of different sessions that are coming up on Money Mondays, talking about this and other things related to money and financing your business. So we just wanted to mention that super quick, so you knew that option was on the table. And I want to say one last thing as I say thank you to the folks who are here today from DMPED and from the Commission on Arts and Humanities. All of the district grant managers that I know care a lot about equitable grant making. And it matters to the agencies a lot. And this is why we like to do education. It's why there's so many different ways that they are trying to do outreach and have people understand what those grant processes look like. One thing to remember about grants overall is that the main grant process all across government is still designed around nonprofits, and you are a for-profit business. So sometimes things might feel like they don't fit as well because the big process was designed a little bit differently. But everyone who has grants for-profits is working to make that work and to be able to help. And so, if you are seeing barriers, if you have questions and concerns, there are a lot of people that you can reach out to and ask questions. You met some of them today. You saw a lot of other people here as well. Please do reach out. All right, we've got one more session that's coming up next week. It's about making grants work for you. And what we're going to talk about in that process is not only the competitiveness on your application, but how when you're applying for something, you can use that effort towards other ends as well. You've got to do double duty on your time. You are super busy all of the time. And so if a grant process, if applying for it can help you do other things too, we want you to think about how to do that. And then the very last piece is if you are able to, we are starting to do some evaluations. You'll get this link afterwards. We would love it if you could give us some feedback on this session. And I'm going to leave this screen up, but I'm just going to ask if there are any parting words from our guest speakers, from Stephanie and Devon, and thank you again so much for being here.
So thank you again. Kate is phenomenal, DSLBD is phenomenal. Thank you for all the participants. Again, as you're looking for these opportunities, the opportunities are being put forward. We are working very hard to figure out ways to support our small businesses and our local ecosystem. Review the RFA, try to apply for it. You never know, but remember to prepare. And of course, we're always here to be supportive and as helpful as we can be.
And I just also want to say thank everybody for attending. Thank you, Catherine, Shannon, and Carolyn for inviting me to come out and speak and give people this information. I would like to tell everybody, start the process now, definitely and absolutely. Start reaching out to those grants managers. If you also have something that you would like CAH to attend, I put my email within the chat room. And you can go ahead and send me that email, and I'll try to make it out to your event to see what you have going on. But definitely, as you apply for as many grants as you possibly can. You can apply for more than one, so don't limit yourself. But just make sure you're intentional and strategic about every application that you submit. But I definitely say shoot for the stars and don't necessarily hold yourself back.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. Shannon, if you want to stop the recording, I think we're all set.
Sure, and there are a couple questions that we might want to address, but I'll stop the recording now.
Great. And I will take a